Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 360. Your weekly little get-together, we're talking about recent gaming news. I'm as always your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight, the Microsoft Activision deal seems all but finished at this point. We had to talk about Major Nelson leaving Xbox, and better sex, and why it seems to sell. But first, I want everyone out there to know this is an audience interactive podcast, so if you're watching live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints, or later at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be they Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, etc., please feel free to join the conversation. If any questions, comments, concerns, etc., just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. Also, if you like what you see here, you know what to do. Likes, bits, follows, subs, all that good stuff. Let's go ahead and move on to the very first story here from Reuters. Microsoft in talks to extend deal contract with Activision. Now, what this actually means, it does not mean that the deal is dead. It doesn't mean that it's not going through. This seems to be more of just a formality, because in the original wording of the contract, once July 18th hit, which is today, by the way, the part of a contract expires saying that either one of the parties can walk away from the deal. It is no longer a binding agreement. And Microsoft is seeking to extend that out by, I don't know, maybe a month or two, so they can make sure all their I's are dotted and T's crossed. This is more of a bookkeeping and note-taking measure than anything else. This does not mean that the deal is dead. In fact, the deal seems to be believed to be going through, especially if you take a look at Activision stock. The $69 million purchase of Activision by Microsoft would roughly come out to be about $95 a share. For the longest time, Activision shares were trading in the mid-70s to maybe mid-80s. However, last week, once the FTC essentially got bodied by the court that they were trying to argue blocking the deal going through from, that number slowly shot up to where now it's hovering at like $93 to $94. The market clearly thinks this is going through, and I'm willing to believe it, considering that that's when people with tons of money start throwing things at it. These people tend to be smart and they know how things work. Typically. To the article itself. Microsoft Corp is in talks about an extension of its acquisition contract of video game maker Activision Blizzard, which is set to expire on Tuesday, so the parties can overcome the remaining regulatory hurdles to their $69 billion deal, a person familiar with the matter said on Monday. What those hurdles are? Well, the FTC is still trying to do some kind of appeals process. They seem to be shut down, but they still might have a trick or two up the sleeve. The biggest issue, however, seems to be falling in the UK, where their version of the FTC is still very hung up on certain aspects of this deal, specifically with cloud gaming. And Microsoft and they are trying to work out the details to avoid going to court. There was originally a court date planned for a couple of weeks from now. That date seems to have been put on hold as both parties are trying to resolve this on their own without going through the legal process. In my opinion, probably because the people over at the UK realized once the FTC was beat, they don't have much of a leg to stand on either. And if Microsoft wanted to, they could just go around them, complete the deal, and not worry about dealing with business in the UK, which would be disastrous. More for the UK side of things, because that's a lot of money they're missing out on. Microsoft could technically do it, though, and given the bullying nature of that company, this is not a company that is known for playing nice. They tend to be vindictive. They tend to be very monopolistic, and they tend to just push people around until they get their way, and have for decades, by the way. I love seeing Major Nelson come up on the screen, and I love seeing, oh my God, what is his name? Phil Spencer out there, and they seem like very nice gentlemen. But at the end of the day, Microsoft is a behemoth that does not give a single fuck if something is standing in their way. They will run it over, up to and including governments. That is just what happens when your company has that much power, and they certainly do. They will bulldoze their way for the UK CMA if they have to, which is probably why they're going to try to negotiate something out of court. And that brings us back to this here. This is a formality. This is just this is just them saying, hey, we still have a few things we need to sort out because this process took longer than we thought. We're just going to try to extend the original terms of the agreement a couple weeks. the factor for this is twofold. One, they want to prevent Activision from walking away. Not that Activision is going to. Kotick himself, Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision, stands to make a mint if this goes through. But also, it would prevent someone bigger than Microsoft, say Apple or Google, both of which seem to be keen to get into gaming, from offering up Activision an even bigger number than $69 million. And Activision would have a fiduciary responsibility to take that deal, by the way, because it would mean more money for their stockholders. So Microsoft just wants to kind of make things official here. I don't think Activision is walking away. This is just to keep some last 11th hour shenanigery from kicking in. In my opinion, this deal is going through, and it's not just my opinion, it is the opinion of the stocks as well. Wall Street is now trading Activision shares at about $93 to $94 per share. The $69 million purchase of Activision by Microsoft would come out to be about $95 a share. Now, for the longest time, Activision shares were sitting around $73 to $85 a share because there was a lot of uncertainty if the deal was going to go through. I would say it was even pretty much a coin flip up until about a week and a half or so. But now that that judge has essentially smacked down the FTC and the deal seems to be clear to go through, the share price of Activision stock is now reflecting that $96 billion buyout. And as these people who are dealing in millions and millions of dollars a day, I wouldn't say they're the smartest people on earth, but they know more about how the system works than either you or I do. So I'm willing to believe them when they're saying that, yeah, they have confidence deals going through. I know that there are a lot of people who are excited for this going through because they think that means they're going to get even more games on their system. I know there are people who are dreading it because they think it might dilute the value of gaming in general. I know that there are just people who are excited and hate it because fuck Microsoft or fuck Sony and they're the console war fanboys. PC master race here. You can all go a pox upon all of your houses, I should say. But how is this deal going to benefit people overall? Well, the obvious answer is Game Pass, right? You're going to have you might seemingly have Activision's entire catalog thrown up on Game Pass. They did cut a deal with Sony saying, hey, Call of Duty will be on your platforms for at least 10 years. That doesn't necessarily, and that still benefits Microsoft because every game sold on PlayStation, every Call of Duty sold on PlayStation, still 30% of it's getting kicked back to Microsoft, give or take a number. So that's still something Sony doesn't necessarily want. As far as arguments against the deal going through, well, Microsoft, they're not really the most creative company anymore. I mean, this is you fucked up Halo. How long has it been since we had Fable? They're not necessarily a talented game maker. Where is Microsoft's version of The Last of Us? Where is Microsoft's version of Super Mario Odyssey? They really don't have one. And the properties and the IPs they did have that could come to that level have languished under mismanagement for the better part of a decade, it seems. So, yeah, that's kind of rough. Furthermore, the subscription service thing is kind of a race to the bottom when it comes to quality. There is a phrase that goes around called Game Pass stink, and it exists for a reason because the games that tend to find themselves on Game Pass are mid-tier offerings at best that publishers don't have the faith in on their own to make back the development costs, so they sell the rights to Microsoft to put them on Game Pass for a little bit. There's a reason why a lot of the Game Pass stuff out there is indie and or that AA to single A tier stuff. You know, your games that get like 6 and 7s out of 10s rather than your huge big blockbusters. It's still an insane value, sure, but it very much seems to be focusing on quantity over quality. As far as I'm concerned, once again, I play PC. All of Microsoft shit was coming to PC anyway, so I don't even own an Xbox. Do I actually care about this deal? In a vacuum, no, not really. As an overall health of the game industry kind of standard, though, I don't think it's that good. I do think it's going to lead to a degradation of quality across the board, much in the same way chasing games as a service or live service stuff has. I don't see this as a overall positive for the gaming industry, but I also don't see it killing the entire industry either. I just think that it is another step into the eventual mobilization of the game industry. And what I mean by mobilization is like phones. Look at all of your phone games. Look at the fucking Apple Store and all the trash you find on that. That's where I see this entire hobby heading, and this is yet another step on that. But hey, that's just like my opinion, right? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Try to keep it civil, please. I know this is a sensitive topic for a lot of people. We have a couple more stories to get through real quick, too. First up, while we're talking about Xbox, let's talk about the fact that Games with Gold is going bye-bye and getting replaced now with, well, essentially Game Pass. The reason why I bring this up is, well, become apparent here in a second. To the article itself from Video Game Chronicle. By the way, the links to this and all the stories we talk about are presented down below in the description or over on our Discord page. Microsoft has announced plans to replace its long-running Xbox Live Gold subscription service with a new Xbox Game Pass membership tier. Beginning September 14th, Xbox Live Gold will become Xbox Game Pass Core. Priced at $10 per month, which is the same as Xbox Live Gold, or $59.99 per year, it offers subscribers access to Xbox multiplayer games, a library of over 25 games, and exclusive member deals. By the way, that sounds a lot like what Sony was doing with their PlayStation Plus offering. They had this catalog of, like, some of Sony's best hits on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 that you would immediately get access to if you signed up to it. That sounds very reminiscent of that. From Jarrett West, Xbox Corporate Vice President. Our launch collection of more than 25 titles from the Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, and our content partners will offer something for everyone to play on Xbox Series S and X and Xbox One consoles. Today, we're confirming the following titles for launch, with more to be announced in advance of September 14th. New titles added 2 to 3 times a year. And here is a list of what they're launching. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. But essentially, if it is a Xbox first-party title, it's on here. Essentially. Now, why are they doing this? Well, that brings me up to the whole Game Pass thing, the destruction of value. Game Pass isn't necessarily profitable at a level that Microsoft wants. And how you know that is that they just refuse to give numbers. Remember one of the big business axioms that I like to mention on this show from time to time. If a company loves what something is doing, they won't fucking shut up about it. If a game is selling well, they will give you exact numbers, how much money it's pulling in, the number of subscribers monthly to it, if it's a live service game, just raw dollar amounts left and right. If it's a bit of a flop or a disaster or something they're not really too proud in, it is like pulling teeth to get them to talk about anything. Which brings me to the fact that Xbox Game Pass is very nebulous in exactly how many people are playing it, how much money it brings in. They're always very reluctant to answer those questions on their investor calls. They say things like, it is sustainable. It is profitable. Okay, well, how profitable? Well, it's profitable. Okay, motherfucker, how? How much money are you breaking in? They don't give you those numbers. They're not at any liberty to, but like I said, if they were good, they would be singing their praises. Not saying them says just as much that they're bad. What this is going to do is it's going to fold all those holdouts for Xbox Live Gold and put them into Game Pass. No extra cost, seemingly getting more or less the same things. But what it allows Microsoft to do is go, hey, we have this number of subscribers to Game Pass now. It lets them artificially inflate the number of people that are part of Game Pass, which is something that you wouldn't be doing if Game Pass was making money hand over fist for you. You wouldn't need to play around with the numbers. And yet they are. There is something shady about the economics of Game Pass. And what I mean by shady is I don't mean necessarily illegal or untoward. What I mean is that they're going out of their way to actually revealing how much this goddamn thing makes. Which probably means, in my opinion, admittedly, but I think a very informed one in this case, that it is nowhere near what they're hoping people think it does. I do think there's a little bit of a shell game going on here where they tried to say, look how many new subscribers we have when they fold this over, while ignoring the fact that it's just not making any money. And I'm not the only one that says that. You have multiple CEOs from Josh Stagnick over at Take-Two, Sony. Let's leave Sony aside right now because, well, they are clearly invested in hurting Microsoft any way they can. But multiple game publisher CEOs have said, hey, Game Pass is not fucking good. It's great for small studios who can just sell their stuff over to Xbox to be guaranteed a cut. But the big boys want nothing to do with it. And I think it's because it's just not profitable. And this change, like I've mentioned a couple times, is just meant to kind of inflate those numbers artificially a touch. I do think Game Pass is in trouble. I think Microsoft has enough money that they don't care. And they'll keep it going because they sure as hell can't back off of it now. They can't just end Game Pass now. People are expecting it. And that's where the value destruction hits in. That's where games that are getting more and more expensive every year to make are now suddenly capped at $10 a month. You have Game Pass. That's what Microsoft's trying to do. Microsoft's trying to do the Netflix thing, and it is not going to work out well for them without a massive increase in cost to Games Pass, which I always felt was their goal to begin with. Drive out your competition, become the biggest gaming town, and then suddenly Game Pass goes from $10 a month to $12 a month to $15 a month to $19 or $20 a month, and then you start ramping up that number because you have nowhere else to turn to. Once again, that's just my stance on it. Very well could be wrong. Very Xbox forward show as we move on to another bit of news. Major Nelson, an iconic figure in Xbox's gaming space, is leaving the company. Note, I did not say retiring. Here from an article from GamesIndustry.biz, Larry, Major Nelson Herb, has decided that he is leaving his position as Director of Programming at Xbox. Herb, is it Herb? I never knew how to pronounce his last name. Herb joined Microsoft in 2001 and moved to the Xbox team in 2003. He spent 2 decades at the company and was known for his work within the Xbox Live community. He said the following on Twitter. After 20 incredible years, I've decided to take a step back and work on the next chapter of my career. The millions of gamers around the world who have included me as part of their lives. Oh, he thanked the millions of gamers around the world who included him as part of their lives and his colleagues for trusting him. The future is bright for Xbox as a gamer, and I'm excited to see the evolution. Herb, who also hosted the official Xbox podcast, revealed that the podcast will be taking a hiatus over the summer before returning in a new format. Xbox CEO Phil Spencer ended up saying that Herb thanked Herb for being a friend and for everything he's done for Xbox community and team. I can talk, I assure you. I just can't on camera. Note that that Major Nelson did not say he was retiring. He said he's moving on to the next chapter of his career. Whether or not that is going to be related to video games remains to be seen. This is where I have to posit a bit of speculation, and I really hate that this is what comes to mind. My gut tells me he is either going to be joining Tencent or the Saudi Public Investment Fund as some kind of consultant. That is what I think is going to happen. You don't spend 20 years at Microsoft and leave because it's a pay dispute. And he's not a programmer from what I can tell. I don't think he is. He's not like a developer in that sense. He was always like a business guy, I believe. I actually don't know that much about his career because I'm not an Xbox guy. But something tells me that he is going to get gobbled up by Tencent or the Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia as a private consultant. Because of the other companies that I can think of that would be able to throw money at him to leave Microsoft. Because it seems to be that he is leaving because he has a better job offer somewhere. He said, the next chapter of my career. Now, he could be leaving games entirely, too. That is something that's open. But if he's staying within games, I'd imagine the only people that can throw enough money at him to make him leave are one of those two companies. One of those two organizations. And we'll go off on that rant another time, if/when that happens. I have one more news story to talk about right now, and we're going to talk about bear sex. That's right. Why it sells. Article here from IGN. Baldur's Gate 3 shoots up Steam top sellers list after bear sex reveal. I will 100% fully admit that this is a clickbaity ass article because they had bear sex in there and people are going to click it, and that is why I'm talking about it, because it has bear sex in it and people want to click it. But that actually has nothing to do with what's going on here. Kind of. To the article itself. Last week's Baldur's Gate 3 showcased propelled the fantasy role-playing game up the Steam top sellers list. The Pen from Hell live stream revealed players can have sex with Druid in bear form. Clips of the cutscene went viral on social media and even caused TikTok to pull the showcase halfway through. That is why it's being mentioned, because it hit virality, and now everyone else, yours truly included, is trying to cash in on that. Did Larian specifically throw in the bear sex scene in there for it to go viral? Maybe. Probably. In fact. You do these things because you want to catch eyeballs. Yes, BVS, I am a dirty sellout. You do these things because you want to catch eyeballs. You do these things because you want attention, because social media is so fucking crowded. It is a blunderbuss of politics, entertainment, diet fads, and TikTok dancing stars that you need something to stand out. So everyone adds a little weird thing into things every now and then to try to catch eyes. Then it goes viral because people see a vampire fucking a bear, and then all the other sites, once again, yours truly included, start talking about it to try to ride the coattails up. So, does bear sex sell? Maybe. It might. The head of Larian himself said, hey, I don't think it was bear sex alone that caused the Steam sales to spike up. I think it's because the panel from Hell, which was their discussion of the upcoming Baldur's Gate 3, really did a good job of selling the game. He is right, in my opinion. It was an excellent panel, and with the game coming out only in a couple weeks, it is expected that sales would start increasing. But let's not let a good viral meme go unused while we can have it. I personally think that this bear sex thing is deliberately oversold. I think people are making videos about it, not necessarily because they think it's right or wrong or funny or not. It's just people chasing the algorithm. Once again, I'm as guilty of it as well. And therein lies the problem. The algorithm chasing. Now, that is going to be a rant for another time, because I can wax poetic about the fact that people aren't actually doing anything naturally anymore, but everything is just tailored to get as many clicks and views as possible, which leads to the most outrageous of headlines. Yours truly included, to be fair. Pot calling itself pot in the kettle and all that. But it's also driving the most insane of behaviors. And I also think it's one of the reasons why you see the massive creative dearth in the gaming industry as a whole these days. Because everyone's chasing the algorithm. Because everyone finds that one super effective thing that works, either capitalizing one word in the headline or having the photo of the hot chick on there, which used to be what it was back in the day. It constantly changes. And that's when you get all these weird ass shovelware games on like Apple stores, the Google store, and mobile phones. And that is where the console space is also now heading to. Algorithmic chasing. Trying to cash in on the latest fad. Trying to con people into thinking that they're buying something that they're not. I will fully admit, I don't remember where I was going with this anymore. This whole thing has just been stream of consciousness at the end here. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap things up. I will say that, is the bear sex the reason why Baldur's Gate 3 shot to the top of the Steam charts? No. The game is coming out soon. It looks good. That's why. Of course it's going to shoot to the top of the charts, because it fucking looks awesome. The bear sex is just a funny meme, and people are reading way more into it with headlines like this than actually warrant it. And that wraps things up. Thank you all for showing up on this earlier than normal episode of GamePoints. I do stream the show every Tuesday. Come on by over at twitch.tv/GamePoints and check it out. I also stream regular games throughout the week, and if you like what you saw here, you know what to do. Likes, bits, follow, subs, all that good stuff. Feel free to let me know what you think about any of these stories as well. I'm curious to know what you all think out there. There's a Discord you can join if you want to be part of the greater GamePoints community, where you can also find the links to the stories, and you can follow myself on Twitter at CapitalistBig21. So next week, y'all take care. I'm out of here.